Morning, Knicks Nation. Today is Monday, the 5th day of May, 2025. 5/5/25. Cinco de Mayo. I hope you had a good weekend, that your family had a good weekend, and that the needs of you and your family in terms of food, shelter, clothing, as well as health being met today. Blessings upon those that work in the healthcare field, saving people's lives, along with first responders. Blessings upon those that pick up garbage, keep our places clean, and those that make deliveries for our convenience. Double blessings on the men and women out here trying to help rescue, deliver, and recover teenagers and children that are victims of child molestation and pedophilia. People that are victims of pornography and child pornography, prostitution, child prostitution, human trafficking, and sex slavery. Double curses on the perpetrators, like that fool that tried to snatch that teenager off the street in New Jersey last week and got busted because a whole bunch of people came and whooped on his behind. Blessings upon those people and curses upon that perpetrator. The perpetrators, those that profit from these things, as well as the perverts, which he is one, that create the demand for these things that cause them to exist. Finally, double blessings on the homeless. More than 700,000 men, women, children, families, senior citizens, and veterans, homeless in the United States of America. Blessings upon them, for theirs is the kingdom. So, tonight is game one, Knicks at Boston. Now, game one is probably the most significant game in any NBA playoff series aside from a game seven. Okay, so except for a game seven, game one is the most significant. Well, why is that? The first two games are played in Boston, right? And so if the Knicks were to win one of those two games, they would come out of Boston one game apiece. The problem for Boston then would be there's 5 more games left, and 3 of them are in Madison Square Garden. That is why people say when the away team can win a game in the home team's home court to open the series, the away team becomes the favorite in terms of home because you got 5 games left. You're not let's look at the Detroit series. So Detroit got a split in New York. That means that the next 3 games out of the 5 are going to be in Detroit. Unfortunately for them, the Knicks won all 3 of those games in Detroit, which is why the Knicks won the series, which showed the Knicks were the better team. But that's how it works. So last night, Indiana was in Cleveland. They beat Cleveland last night in Cleveland. Therefore, now the worst that could happen to Indiana leaving Cleveland is to have a split 1-1 if Cleveland comes back and wins the second game. But then the next 5 games is basically a best of 5 with Indiana having home court. That's how that works, see? So the first game is extremely important in any series. And both teams are fighting. The home team to keep their home court advantage and the away team to get the home court advantage. And plus to get that first game in as the win, right? 1 of 4 that you need. So, for example, again, in the Detroit series, the game that the Knicks won by the biggest margin was game 1 because it was very important that they win game 1. So they did. They won that one by 11 points. We know what happened in game 2. The Detroit ended up with the dub, right? Regardless of what the refs did or whatever happened in game 2, if you look back on the series, the record just says 1-1, and that's all that matters, okay? So tonight, you can expect full tilt from the Celtics. You know, back in the 80s, Bill Parcells used to coach the Giants. The greatest coach the New York Giants have ever had was Bill Parcells, who was one of the greatest head coaches in the NFL in the history of the league of NFL. Well, there was a game where I think it was a playoff game. I forgot who they were playing, but there was a goal line stand. In other words, the opponent had got inside the 5-yard line, and the Giants held them on 4 downs inside the 5-yard line. After the game, they asked Bill Parcells about how that happened. He said, basically, it was our guys against their guys, and our guys won. Well, this is where we got now. There's nobody on either team on the injury report. Nobody on either team in injury report. Okay? So it's our guys against their guys. Okay? Period. Mitchell Robinson's going to be playing. He's not going to start. He's going to play what he's, like we say, he's going to be coming off the bench with Deuce McBride. And then either Cameron Payne or Landry Shamet, depending on what Tibbs chooses. I know a lot of people have been whining about Precious Achiuwa. It would be nice if Thibodeau was permitted to coach his team without whining from the peanut gallery and people called fans of the Knicks. It would be nice. I'm just saying. Okay? Y'all got to whine about something all the time. If you could just give that a chill, let the boy do his thing. Tibbs is the coach. They're paying him $11 million a year to coach the Knicks. He don't need your help. You got assistance. So, it's our guys against their guys. Starting five, plus Deuce, plus Mitch Rob, against the Celtics starting five, plus Hauser, Cornette, and Pritchard. That's really what you're going to have here. Okay? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about strategy. Yesterday we talked about how the Knicks need to have ball control. In other words, limit the turnovers. Under 10 would be ideal, okay? They average 13, 12, or 13 a game, which is still not bad, but under 10 would be ideal. 10 or less would be ideal, which they are capable of doing. They need to guard the three-point line, which is during the whole Detroit series, it was driving me crazy that either Duran or Reed or Tobias Harris, who also was guarded by Cat at times, would drift to the three-point line. Cat would drift out there to him, leave his backside open. I saw Thompson would do a backdoor cut, get the ball, and dunk. One game he had like 6 of those. The reason that was a problem then is because nobody was coming across to help. Guys like Jalen Brunson was getting beat backdoor, not paying attention, or they were just too small to guard an Asor Thompson under the basket. For Boston, it's the same thing, except you want Cat going out there. You want him going out high because it's Kristaps Porzingis. It's not Jalen Duren. It's not Paul Reed. It's Kristaps Porzingis who can hit from the logo. Okay? So you want Cat out there, which means the backside has to be covered by his teammates. Okay? What Boston is going to do is exactly what Detroit did. Detroit's weakest link offensively was Asor Thompson. That's why Brunson was guarding him. As long as Asor Thompson was at the three-point line, that's no problem. Brunson could guard him out there. But when he cuts backdoor or when he sets up on the block and Cat is out at the three-point line guarding Duran or guarding Paul Reed, there's a mismatch under the basket, which turned into a basket for Detroit more often than not. It's the same strategy Boston's going to do. They're going to have KP out by the three-point line because he's not going to be able to easily post up Cat. I'm not saying he can't do it, but his percentage chances of scoring are from the perimeter against Cat. So they will do that again, and they're looking for Jalen Brunson's mismatch. It's either going to be Jrue Holiday or it's going to be Derek White. That's going to be the mismatch. Okay, White is a great three-point shooter. He is not a low block guy. Asor Thompson is better on a low block than Derek White, but that's just because that's Asor Thompson's game in that particular situation. So I think that if I was the coach, if I was doing this strategy for Boston, I would, if I was Missoula, I would have Jrue Holiday get switched on Brunson and let him be under the basket because the Knicks have to pay attention to the three-point line with Derek White. If I'm the Knicks, I counter by having Hart switch and guard Jrue Holiday on the low block. This is going to be a key here, one of them. So That's what I would do, because I like, if I'm Missoula, I like Drew Holiday's chances against either Brunson or Hart under the basket. Okay, against either. Drew Holiday is a full 6'5", a good 220, muscular dude. Whereas Hart is 6'4", he might be 200, but I doubt it. And so that's where I would try to gain an advantage. And then, of course, the ball, you're going to have the Boston Celtics move the basketball. So you're going to have the basketball moving, and they're going to try to create a three-point opportunity for one of their lethal three-point shooters. Okay? Of the three-point shooters, Jaylen Brown has been lighting it up from three so far in the playoffs. But overall, I would say he is probably the weakest of the starting five as far as a three-point shooting threat. So I would allow him to have more room on the three-point line than anybody else. You got to give somebody room, even if you can't just lock down all five guys. This is the league. You can't do it. So you're looking for the weakest link. And what makes the Celtics so strong is that right now in the playoffs, all five guys are shooting somewhere around 40%. Now you got KP's been going through a slump, but you can't expect that to continue. He's too good. So you know he's going to shoot his career average in the playoffs, like he did last year. He's going to do that. And he loves to go off against the Knicks. So you got to figure, even though he's only shooting 12% from three, you do not want him wide open for the three. You just don't want that, okay? If he's off, it's going to make it easier for us, but we can't assume that. Drew Holiday is the guy. And you want him shooting anywhere but the corner. Do not let anybody on the Celtics shoot in the corner. It's the shortest distance to the basket from the three-point line. It's in the NBA the easiest shot. There's three shots that you do not let any NBA player have from three. Either corner or straight away. The game that the Knicks just beat Detroit, Jalen Brunson got a wide open look straight away. Done. You're going to get done more than not in that scenario. And of course, for the Knicks, we know that both Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby are tops, like I would say easily top 10 in the NBA on corner threes. Easily. In fact, OG has been the top shooter from the three-point line in the corner for a minute, and so has Mikal Bridges. They've been in that position. Boston is favored to win 70% to 30%. They're giving them almost 10-point win over the Knicks. But this is game one. So Boston is going to be fighting. The Knicks' strategy is to have the switch between Hart and Brunson as much as you can. You want Hart guarding the guy they're trying to target for Brunson. Okay, that you want that as much as possible. Brunson is good guarding the perimeter, actually. He's not good if somebody trying to take him off the dribble, but in terms of guarding the perimeter, he could do that. In terms of getting done on a low post, you might have a problem, right? And the only two guys in their rotation that would not give him much of a problem, well, they would be a problem too, but he could guard them, is Derek White and Pritchard on the low block, okay? So if you get them on the post with Brunson has a good chance of defending them. Anybody else, we'll have a problem, okay? So, Mitchell Robinson. Thibodeau's going to run the Robinson Cat combination at some point in the game. How much it's run depends on the Celtics, and it depends on its effectiveness. The lineup has been very effective. I call it Mitch, Rob, Cat, and three midgets, because basically you have Mitchell Robinson, Cat, and then you have three guards out there. Sometimes you'll have Josh Hart with Jalen Brunson and Deuce, or Deuce and Cameron Payne and Dalen, but you're going to have those two big guys and three midgets out there. You're at a rebounding disadvantage in the sense that the three midgets, right? Which is why Hart ends up out there a lot with them, because he's a rebounder. Even, we know he's one of the best rebounders in the NBA, period, pound for pound, inch for inch. So you want him out there. So you're usually going to have Deuce, Hart, and somebody else. That's a good defensive unit as well, right? Even with Cat, because Cat can run defense much better when he has got to play the 4 spot, because Mitch Rob is the rim protector. So it's going to be an interesting series. It's going to be a chess match. But in terms of pure toughness and willingness to get on the floor and get the 50-50 balls, if that's their focus, I give that edge to the Knicks. In terms of talent, in terms of continuity, in terms of championship experience, it's obviously Boston, right? Obviously. So we're going to see. This is going to be our guys against their guys. This is a game, that's why they call it stealing a game. If the Knicks could steal game one, I'm going to tell you what, we'd be in good shape. We really would. But it's going to be hard. It's not going to be no easy game. Just like yesterday, I saw the Cleveland-Indiana game. It was a dogfight into the fourth quarter. Cleveland with no Darius Garland, but it was a dogfight into the fourth quarter. And Indiana was just better yesterday, period. They just was. Cleveland was a little off yesterday. I think the missing of Garland in the big playoff series was significant for them. This ain't the regular season. See, if the Knicks are missing Jalen Brunson for a couple of games in the regular season, okay, we could try to weather that storm. If they're missing OG Anunoby, we could weather that storm. You know, anybody. But when you're in the playoffs, you need all hands on deck, okay? And so when they was missing Garland yesterday, that was pretty big for them, and so they lost. And so Indiana ended up, going up 1-0 in the series, stealing one in Cleveland. So now Indiana has the home court advantage going back to when they get ready to go back to Indiana, no matter what happens in game two. If Indiana was to win game two also, that series is over in 5. I'm telling you right now, okay? But that's what I said against Detroit. If Detroit got a split in New York, I told y'all it was going to be a 6-game New York. If Detroit lost both games in New York, that series is over in 5. If Detroit won both games in New York, I still picked New York in 7, okay? This is the Boston Celtics, though. So we're going to have to really take one game at a time. Forget the series. I'm not even predicting whatever. I'm not. This is the Boston Celtics. It's a whole different team. Not saying anything bad about Detroit. Detroit is more physical than Boston. They are. But they're not a better team. Boston is if you look up elite basketball team in the NBA in the dictionary, you'll see green. Because that's what you're dealing with right here. There's no doubt, okay? So the Knicks understand that, but as much as you understand that, you got to play them physical, you got to play them tough. Now, another key here is this. How will the refs allow the game to be called? You remember, again, the Detroit series. One of the things that caused Detroit to be able to win 2 games in New York was because Asar Thompson was permitted to beat up Jalen Brunson. That period. I'm just going to say it like that. I'm not saying the boy ain't played great defense. He is a great defensive player, Asar Thompson. In fact, he is their best perimeter defender. But that was it. He was permitted to be physical with Jalen Brunson. Push him, grab him. Same with Tobias Harris. Now, that series would have been over in 4 or 5 games if they didn't allow Tobias Harris to beat up Cat, because that's what he was doing. If you looked at Cat, it was blood coming from his shoulder. Why? Because he's getting scratched and grabbed and pushed by Tobias Harris. So if, I say all that to say, if, which is unlikely, the refs allow OG Anunoby to play like that against Tatum, oh, we got a good shot then. We got a good shot then, okay? Because as great, and I mean great, as Jason Tatum is, he's a top 5 player in the NBA, which means he's a top 5 player on the planet. Jason Tatum is that good. He will get beat up, you will be in his face, and he will still splash it on you. But we have a really good shot if OG is permitted to play him physical. Because OG could get physical now. They just weren't allowing him to do that as much against Cade Cunningham, if you recall. If OG blew air at Cade Cunningham, he was getting a foul call, okay? But if OG was allowed to be physical, those are the games we won, okay? And that's the key here. So it really depends on how the refs call this game. And I want to tell you, if they call it tight, it works in the Celtics' favor. The Celtics are too skilled. They're very skilled at every area. They have no weaknesses. The Celtics have no weaknesses, okay? So it would be difficult. If they call it loose and let them be physical, the Knicks got a chance. They just like Detroit had a chance. The Knicks got a chance to beat them, okay? So game 1 is extremely important. If we can steal this one tonight, and I'm telling you right now, Jalen Brunson's going to come to play tonight. Just like Cade Cunningham came to the Garden to play, Jalen Brunson is coming to TD Center to play. Okay, he's not going to come half-stepping. The only problem, which we all are very much aware in Knicks Nation, we don't want him trying to take on the whole Boston Celtic team by himself. So the game strategy is he might start off hot, but they're going to be all on his behind. So he's not to let that ball move. He's got to let the ball move. He's got to let Mikal Bridges and Josh Hart establish the offense, set up the offense. He's got to go off ball. He's going to probably have either Derek White or Jrue Holiday on him. Both of all defense. Both of them cats have been all NBA defense. He's got to let them run behind him as he's running through screens and then try to work on them when he gets the ball in space. That's what he's going to have to do. If he does that, and then, of course, by the fourth quarter, everybody's tired except Brunson. That's when he takes over. So you got to let the ball move for 3 quarters. Let his boys, everybody got to get a touch. And again, what you do want is you want Cat to have that ball offensively. Now, they can guard him with Brown. They can guard him with Holiday. They're not going to try to guard him with Porzingis because Karl Anthony Towns will absolutely have Porzingis for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They're not going to do that. Okay? So they will have Jaylen Brown guard him. They will have Jrue Holiday because Jrue Holiday is strong. They want somebody a little bit more mobile and stronger to guard Cat. And then what's Cat advantage in that scenario is he's still bigger than whoever you put on, right? So we're gonna see. It's very difficult for them. They gotta have their hands full with Karl Anthony Towns. So that's that. Okay. This is how it's gonna be. It's our guys against their guys. Let's hope our guys win tonight. Y'all enjoy it. So